Take. Carrie Champion here with Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith. It's always great when we're all in studio. Good morning, gentlemen.
Welcome.
What's going on? How y'all doing?
Where were you? He says welcome back. Where were you?
I was in Philadelphia.
Oh, well,
I was in Philadelphia.
Condolences.
Condolences.
Condolences for what? Life is nice.
Well, you could have been in New York.
Well,
Yeah.
you know,
Your
the
city.
apartment in New York, got the house in Philly.
Big time.
You summer and vacation at different places. You summer, you winter.
It would be a vacation, but life is nice. Life is nice. Yeah.
Coming up on the show, ladies and gentlemen, who won the quarterback competition last night? Was it Hoyer or was it Manziel or no one, really? And also, there's a report out that says RG3's best year was his rookie season. Is that a fair analysis? The gentleman will discuss. Herm Edwards will join the desk along with Eric Allen to help expand the narrative. But first, let's talk about Monday Night Football, shall we? Big stage, Browns quarterback competition. Brian Hoyer and Johnny Manziel split reps, both struggling to find their way. In 5 drives, Hoyer was 2 for 6 passing, 16 yards, while Manziel, with 4 drives, was 7 for 16 passing, 65 yards, and a touchdown. Let's listen, guys.
I mean, I'm pretty hard on myself. I don't think I did a very good job today. I think there was a lot of room for me to improve. Some throws that I wish I would have had back. But I'm not sure. I mean, that's really up to Coach Pettin and the higher powers than it is me. I think I just need to come in every day and continue to try and get better.
Come in every day and continue to try and get better. We're handing out grades at schools, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of huffing and puffing. Skip Bayless, what grade would you give Manziel?
Stephen A. Smith, obviously, I expect a whole lot, an awful lot, from this 21-year-old who could be a junior at Texas A&M. So even though this was only his second NFL preseason action, I'm going to be a tough grader today. I'm going to give Johnny Manziel a D, a D for his effort last night, or lack thereof. Number one, he missed a shocking number of throws he rarely, if ever, misses. Number two, he often looked a little overwhelmed by the Redskins' blitzes and their disguised veteran secondary coverages. And number three, and most disappointing for me, I did not see a single flash last night of Johnny football. I'm talking about the magic we just heard Coach Gruden refer to in our open. The magic that we often saw in college, and that I also saw in his first preseason game at Detroit a week ago on the weekend. This time, with the quarterback job on the line, it looked to me like Johnny Manziel was trying too hard to be the perfectly coachable rookie pocket passer. To do exactly what the coaches wanted him to do. Stay in the pocket, run through his progressions without running. That's not Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel is not a robot. I didn't like seeing a guy I think is a rare football player try to play excruciatingly conservatively last night. Conventionally last night. So, in the end, I think Johnny Manziel needs to keep the defense honest with an occasional escape. I wanted to see more rollouts, and I definitely want to see just an occasional bomb, because this kid can wing it deep. We saw that often at Texas A&M, and I saw none of the above last night in all the plays that Johnny played. So, as bad as he was, I still think he was a little better than Brian Hoyer was last night. That's not saying a whole lot, but I still think he was a little better than Brian Hoyer. Bottom line, I would still start Johnny Manziel from what I've seen in 2 preseason games in the opener at Pittsburgh regular season.
Honestly, I respectfully disagree with you, even though I do believe he was better than Brian Hoyer last night, who was simply pathetic. 2 completions in 5 series. That's just as pathetic as it gets. Brian Hoyer really should be ashamed of himself, considering the fact that this is his 6th year in the NFL, and he looked like a deer caught in headlights, all because of the buzz that was Johnny Manziel. Clearly, the pressure of playing professional football pales in comparison to the pressure that Johnny Manziel's presence brings to the Cleveland Cavaliers and the starting quarterback position, because Brian Hoyer is clearly flustered. He is significantly better than what he showed last night. You should be ashamed of yourself, bro. You are a flat-out embarrassment. We know that you're better than that, regardless of what anybody thinks. Having said all of that, I would totally agree with you. I would give Johnny Manziel a D. It was not an impressive performance. The only thing I'd give him a B or an A for is acknowledging that he was pretty close to pathetic.
That's well said.
I give him credit for taking accountability. But Johnny Manziel wasn't that impressive either. He completely underthrew, overthrew, threw behind guys. You know, I just wasn't impressed with his passing ability at all. And the one thing that I will say that I am incredibly concerned about, that speed that we saw against the Detroit Lions second unit, we didn't see that speed being as conspicuous against the Washington Redskins. Whether it's D'Angelo Hall and the crew, whether it's a safety like Philip Morris and Bakari Rambo, the list goes on and on. They were in Johnny's face. Kerrigan got a sack on him and Hoyer. Jim Haslett brought the rain. You know, you could tell, you could see a conspicuous difference in the defense that Jim Haslett was running under Mike Shanahan and Jim Haslett is running under Jay Gruden. Clearly, Jim Haslett has the reins, and clearly he wasn't lying when he said he was reined in by Shanahan, because what I saw from the Washington Redskins was a team, a defense with the ability to put pressure on the quarterback. And boy, were they bringing it. They were on far too many occasions. It was like throwing in a phone booth for both Hoyer and Johnny Manziel. They had no room, no space, no air to breathe. The Redskins were all over them. So
is that their fault, or Washington? Should we credit Washington?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. I think that you don't ignore Washington, because we've believed for the last couple of years that they have the personnel to bring that kind of heat. Now, if it came out of nowhere and then suddenly they were successful against Cleveland, we'd say, oh, Cleveland stinks. But the fact that we've been talking about Arakpo, who was hurt a couple of years ago and then came back last year, wasn't 100%. We've been talking about Kerrigan, who was out last year. You look at the acquisition of Hatcher and the crew. You still have D'Angelo Hall and Merriweather and those boys. You just say to yourself, and Ryan Clark, who, by the way, had a good hit on Johnny Manziel yesterday, and his veteran leadership seems to be already showing. You know, I mean, listen, I look at the Washington Redskins right now, and I'm saying, if that defense has any kind of potential and they show up, then indeed it does come down to RG3, because that defense seems like it's hell-bent on establishing its presence. And I didn't see Johnny capable of evading their pressure. And that, to me, stood out because, Skip, if he can't run the ball effectively against NFL teams, then he is not going to be what you think he's going to be.
What do you think he's going to be?
I don't know yet.
I have no doubt about what he's going to be.
I have doubts about what he's going to be if he can't run the football.
Do you think he can't run the football?
I'm not going to say that yet because I got to see.
Trust me. I got to see. This defensive front is going to do this to Nick Foles and to Tony Romo and to Eli Manning. They are legit. That's why I'm leaning
But those guys can't run.
Okay, but I'm saying, but they're going to do this to everybody. And those guys can all beat the blitz, but they're going to be all over them this year. The Redskins' defense is no joke. By the way, I don't think Cleveland's defense is any joke either.
That's all another.
The nice interception by Hayden as well.
Okay, now, I'm going to give both quarterbacks a break for one thing that happened last night that I have never seen in all my years of covering professional football. Mike Pettin, first-year head coach, did you notice the rotation he used with two quarterbacks who are competing for the same job? Never seen this before. Wait a second. Brian Hoyer plays 6 plays, 2 series. Then all of a sudden, with 5:26 left in the first quarter, I'm shocked because in comes Johnny Football and runs 13 plays. And then before the half ends, 5:59 in the second quarter, it's left. Hoyer comes back in and finishes the half by running 7 more plays. Then Johnny Football, cold, has to sit and watch those plays, then go through halftime. And then Manziel comes back and runs 21 plays to start the second half when I thought maybe he was finished for the night. Never before have I seen 2 quarterbacks, again, vying for the same job, who had to alternate their series, you know, a couple series here, a couple series here, a couple, and you get completely out of rhythm. You get cold on the sidelines. You're not sure. I doubt they knew that was exactly how it was going to fall out last night. I think Patton was kind of going by seat of pants. I don't know that for a fact, but it sure looked like it, just depending on how the series fell. It's not fair to either guy because you can't get in any flow. You need to get, if you're going to win the job, you need to have a half belongs to you and a half belongs to you, or at least a quarter and a quarter. That's not how this played out last night.
Well, let's be clear. First of all, fair is a place where they judge pigs. It doesn't matter. It doesn't exist. Everybody knows that. That's number one. Number two, it still doesn't explain how guys were being underthrown and overthrown. When you're a quarterback, you've got to go back in that pocket and you've got to fling that football.
All right, that's fine. I agree. But have you ever seen this in the years you've watched football?
You're absolutely right that I've never seen it. But at the same time, I'm still looking at the fact that both of you, it's one thing not to be in rhythm. It's one thing not to be as good as you're capable of being. It's another thing to be so pathetic that you are grossly and flagrantly outplayed by a dude by the name of Connor Shaw, who might not be on the roster in the next 2 weeks. I know he can play, and I know he has Steve Spurrier.
Coach Spurrier on, and he said you guys better not sleep on Connor Shaw.
I understand that.
I watch Connor Shaw a lot. He's pretty good.
And so
he's not as good as Johnny, and he will never be as good. And he did get to go against the threes, not the twos.
Listen, I watched Connor Shaw because you told me. I remember you saying, Stephen A., you got to watch this guy. And I watched him several games last night last year at South Carolina. I'm very, very impressed with him. I was very impressed with him with what I saw. I like his guts. I like his moxie. And he can make the throws. But you were not. I don't care about the inconsistency of Mike Pettin. You were not supposed to be so flagrantly outplayed if you're Hoyer or you're Johnny Manziel. And last point, Pettin, if you want to call him out, let me tell you why you called him out. He coached under Rex Ryan for a few years with that defense. Watched as Rex Ryan got all the credit for some of the stuff that he was doing. And that's not to say that Rex Ryan didn't deserve some of the credit, but so did he. Then he leaves for Buffalo for a year, if I remember correctly. And why? Because he wants to go out there to establish his own thing in his own name. And certainly it was the right decision because he ended up getting a head coaching job. But what did we say about Rex those first few years? Doesn't have a clue about offense. And here's the guy that played under you, that coached under you, rather, that doesn't seem to have a clue about offense. Because based on what we're seeing from preseason, Mike Pettin, and I'm not disrespecting him, I know the man knows football, I know he can coach. He coached defense, he deserves a lot of credit for that. But based on how this offense has looked and what he's been doing, he seems lost as to what to do. I
agree with that.
All right, gentlemen, you both give Johnny Manziel a D, not a passing grade. Stephen A., you brought up something. It may come down to RG3. We'll talk about RG3 in just a bit later on in the show, but let's continue with Mr. Manziel. After an incomplete pass, Manziel gave Washington's bench the middle finger. He wasn't penalized, but could be fined for unsportsmanlike conduct. The real issue is, though, why was Manziel listening to taunts Manziel and head coach Mike Pettin on his actions?
Why is what wrong?
When you flip them, like why is it a negative?
I mean, I don't think it's a positive.
I mean, is it a distraction or is it just?
No distraction at all. I mean, it's not a big deal to me. I think I need to, like I said, hold my composure better, but. It's a gesture.
He does not sit well, and I was informed of it after the game, and it's disappointing. I mean, because what we talk about is being poised and being focused. That you have to be able to maintain your poise. That's a big part of all football players, especially the quarterback. That we have to keep our composure. So that's something that we will obviously address with him.
Is that something you factor into when picking a starter, or do you go simply on what you see performance-wise on the field?
No, it's whoever gives us the best chance to win the opener will be the starter.
All right, especially the quarterback, he must maintain his composure. So what exactly happened? Redskins safety Ryan Clark was on Mike and Mike earlier this morning and explained what could have set Manziel off.
I can tell you what the statement was that set him off. The statement was, "This isn't college anymore, and these people are faster than you are," and he didn't like it. And that was me cleaning up the statement, but that's pretty much what it was.
All right, there it was. Stephen A. Smith, his actions last night, how does it affect the quarterback battle?
Well, I'm quite sure, considering the age that we live in, social media, the media storm that it ultimately creates, that it could potentially have a negative impact on him because it's going to be perceived as him not being mature. And clearly there's a maturity level that he has to reach. I will remind everybody he's 22 years old. He's in his first year out of college. And by the way, I think it's much ado about nothing. And I'm going to go as far as to say all of these NFL pundits and aficionados, I'm going to call everybody out right now. It's getting to be a bit sickening. If I'm here, I'm under the impression that Johnny Manziel flipped his finger at the fans, which I obviously would think would be egregious because you can't react to them. But I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, pause. This was at the Redskins?
Right.
Because the Redskins was saying something to him, and he was flipping the bird at his opponent? Excuse me, are we not overreacting to this now? It's a bit ridiculous. I mean, I'm watching Sports Center, I'm listening to radio, I'm watching the networks, and I'm like, Johnny, listen, it's not that big of a deal, but you can't react like they can't be hearing the fans. You got to tune them out. Come to find out, it wasn't at the fans at all. It was at the Redskins. You mean your opponent? You mean your opponent that's talking smack to you? The opponents that don't have the microphone on them and Lord knows what they're saying to you while they're trying to smack you upside your head and cut you off at the knees and body slam you? I keep going back to what I told you when I ran into Cam Chancellor, the leader of the Legion of Boom, and he's at the ESPYs, and he's like, has he been hit yet? That was his whole thing because, Cat's going to go at him. So here you are, knowing that guys are going to go at you. Now, please don't get me wrong. Let's not lose perspective here. I am not advocating that it is okay for you to flip the bird at somebody, especially with the cameras rolling. But the
cameras are always rolling.
Right.
Especially on him.
I understand it, but what I'm saying is the flip side to it is can we gather clarity here? I mean, I was under the impression initially until I woke up this morning that it was at the fans because all you heard was he flipped the middle finger. So I'm thinking, can't react like that towards the fans. Got to tune them out, got to ignore them, blah, blah, blah. But if it's towards the Redskins, is it really that big of a deal when we got the lead Sports Center and everybody's got to talk about it as if it's breaking news and back page headlines and leading.com and trending on Twitter? And for what? Because that's your opponent? And that's how you felt about them because Lord knows what they were speaking. Thank God for Ryan Clark coming on Mike and saying, well, we didn't say it in those terms. Obviously, it can't be repeated, but that was basically the message and he didn't like it. At least somebody had the decency to be honest about the fact that you were coming at him. Now, we can sit there and say, well, you can't do that. But at the same time, how come we always look at the end result and we don't look at what leads up to it? How do we ignore that? That's all I'm trying to say here. It's not the wisest thing to do. You got to tune it out or whatever. But if you sit there and listen to NFL Network and how they mic you in NFL films, do you hear the stuff that these dudes say to each other? I mean, do you hear? Because you're competing. And we're touching in the dangerous territory. Obviously, again, not advocating the use of the middle finger. But we're touching on dangerous territory when we want to try to police how cats are going at each other. They're going at each other like this all the time. Some of the stuff that is said is far more egregious than somebody flipping the bird at you.
All right,
that's all I'm trying to say.
Out, though. So, again, should it be a factor in this quarterback battle?
I don't think it should be, but I think it will because it's Johnny. And that's the bottom line. It's Johnny Manziel, so everything's going to be blown up in the astronomical proportions, which I think in this particular specific incident is ridiculous. You're competing. You're competing.
I pretty much agree with everything you just said. I did not love this. I do not condone it. I don't ever want to see it from him again. Now, silly me, when I first saw the flash of it, I was hoping it was some weird signal that he was giving to his coordinator and sideline, like I want a new personnel group to come in. But no, it was over the shoulder. And let's be clear about this. He didn't turn and face and give the double bird, right? He flipped it over his shoulder without turning to look. Am I right about that? Okay, so it's basically Johnny Manziel saying whatever to you. He's saying whatever you think is fine, heck with you. Now, the reason I would not hold this against him as far as winning and losing the job is you better believe this is part and parcel of the Johnny football package. If you watched him in college, and I watched every play he ran, he was a notorious trash talker in the Southeastern Conference. Not an initiator, a responder. If you started it, he would try to finish it. Do you remember the Rice game that started off this year?
Started off last year, and the coach went in his face, like, what you doing?
He had to sit the first half. Remember his silly suspension for a half? And then he throws a touchdown pass. They're all over him doing the money sign to him. And what happened? Kevin Sumlin walks him all the way from the end zone back to the bench and benched him, took him out of the game, and told the press afterwards, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, it's a foolish penalty because they're going to be chirping at him every week in this league that we're about to play in, and you can't let it get to you. Well, clearly, you can't let the Redskins get to you. And I get it. They were over in the first sack that Ratpo's over and doing it. So after a while, he just couldn't take it. Now, here's the point, and do not miss this point about Johnny Football. The more he trash talks and the madder he gets, the better he plays. You better believe it. I saw it again and again. The madder he got at the Auburn Tigers at Texas A&M, the more plays he made. It's part and parcel. And if you don't like it, you should cut him, cut loose, cut bait, and let him go somewhere else.
You're saying that's who he is as a quarterback.
Yes, it is. Now, I don't want to see that
composure.
I don't want to see the middle finger anymore, but the trash talk is part of who he is.
Listen, bottom line is this, man. Listen, if opponents are looking at you and calling you everything but the child of God, okay, how is that less egregious than the middle finger? Because it's more visual? I mean, is that what it is? All I'm trying to say is this. I don't want to see the NFL involved in all this. Oh, they're going to review the tapes. And after that, they're going to fine them.
They will.
I mean, they're going to fine them. Well, you going to fine somebody for what they were saying to them? Well, let it go.
You can't see what they're saying.
All right, that's fine. That's the whole point. And that's the whole point of all of this. And then if that's going to be the case, because the NFL is going to find you, can we at least have the decency as members of the Fourth Estate to fall back and just say, you know what, this really ain't a big deal. I'm watching people out there. I mean, listen, we got people, I'm sorry to bring this up, we got people in the NFL getting arrested, man. Arrested.
Yeah. So
and we talking about Johnny Manziel. Yeah. We treat like he committed a crime. Yeah. What? Am I gonna sit here and tell you that I didn't give people the middle finger? You're damn right I have in the past. And I mean, come on, man.
It's just because
it's ridiculous.
He's a quarterback with a reputation.
Listen, it's ridiculous. It's not. Listen, it's ridiculous. I'm just saying, fine. The NFL got to fine him. Fine. But us, as members of the Fourth Estate, can we fall back, pump the brakes, calm our damn nerves, and really put things in its proper perspective? You're going up against the Redskins. They're having their way with you physically. They're putting pressure on you. Receivers are dropping passes. You're underthrowing, overthrowing dudes. It's a frustrating evening, and they're talking smack to you, and you flip them the bird. Can we not act like the man committed a daggone crime? Can we do that?
Something we have to continue to talk to him about, how important he is to this team and this franchise, and when he gets out of the pocket, he needs to protect himself. You know, he's had a habit in his career of being able to get himself out of those predicaments with his speed and his athleticism. But here, being it's a 16-game season with the great talent across the league in the NFL, he's got to pick his shots and learn how to get down a little bit better.
Robert Griffin also struggled on Monday night. Robert Griffin III. He was 6 for 8, 112 yards and a pick. Griffin struggled to find his receivers, and he took some tough hits when he scrambled out of the pocket, as Jay just mentioned. Griffin looks as if he still hasn't learned to slide and get down. So, Stephen A., watching him last night, your takeaway?
Skip Bayless, I'm worried. I'm very worried about RG3. I want to be very, very clear that I have no questions about his guts. I have no question about his abilities as a passer if he's 100% healthy. But because he clearly is not, I'm talking about still. I didn't see him 100% healthy last night. As a matter of fact, I saw him go down once and come up limping. I saw him a little bit hobbled. It wasn't too obvious, but it was there where he was a bit ginger, to say the least, in terms of his ability to run the football. I didn't like that 13-yard. I didn't like that scramble that he did last night. I didn't like him taking an unnecessary hit near the sideline that he took. He didn't quite get hit like he got, or like Haloti Ngata hit him a couple of years back, but nevertheless, it is what it is. What I saw is a guy that is still trying to get back to what he once was. And I'm not sure he's there. Now, the guts is there because he won't put on the knee brace or whatever, and I think he might need to. Something to make his legs feel a bit more secure. I'm concerned about him right now because I don't see that same dude. It was a nice bomb that he threw to Roberts. It was a nice sweep. I think it was, 49 yards, something along those lines. But, I mean, for the most part, RG3 wasn't that impressive to me. And then when I look at it and I think back to a couple of years ago, when Shanahan, in my opinion, did him a disservice by having him run about 120 times, obviously exercising the read option where RG3 is very formidable. We saw during that time him complete 65% of his passes that season. And as a result of seeing him throw those completions, we said, well, he's got a pocket presence too. But what I think people need to take into consideration is you might have had a pocket presence because people feared your ability to be elusive and to run the football. Whereas now that fear isn't so much there, now, could you be the same guy in the pocket when people are not as worried about you scrambling out of the pocket and doing damage? I've got questions. But it's not because of his skill set. It's because of his health. And I told you before, when I said I would take Andrew Luck #1 overall, and I was an Andrew Luck guy, it wasn't just his ability to be a pocket passer. It wasn't his pocket presence and just his throws. I specifically said to you, his physique. His legs are like tanks, man. He's a big boy. And as a result, he's going to be conditioned and capable of taking a pounding I'm not sure a relatively slim RG3 can take. And sure enough, that's what I believe we're seeing right now. So I'm concerned about RG3 because I wonder how much punishment is he going to be able to absorb and still be RG3.
First of all, I disagree with your premise that you don't think he's healthy yet. I think he was healthy going into this game. I'm not sure about it now.
That's fair. That's fair. Right. I'm just talking about now, based on what happened during the game.
May I please accentuate the positive before I get to the negative?
Please do.
He made a couple throws last night that were vintage 2012 throws. I'm talking about vintage Rookie of the Year RG3 throws, including that bomb. That was a sweet deep ball. You got to give him that.
It was nice. A little delay. Had to wait a second, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad.
It was pretty good.
It wasn't completely in stride, but it was good.
Boy, you're being hypercritical today.
No, I'm just being honest.
Wow.
With my eyes
I think you're seeing through Andrew Luck colored glasses.
Not at all.
No?
Not at all.
Okay.
Andrew Luck.
RG3 was still #2. That ain't bad.
Yeah.
There were long moments last night. There were sequences when I thought Robert looked like Robert, where he looked more comfortable than I ever saw him look at any point last year as he came back too quickly off that knee and under Mike Shanahan.
Okay.
Now, back to your points. On the first attempted slide, I thought he almost tore his knee up. That's how bad the slide was. That was as dangerous as it gets. He got his leg caught in the turf underneath him as he slid because he cannot slide. And I'm not talking about mental. He's not physically capable. I don't know if they could have, I talked about this last year. Can you conduct sliding practice at practice? Can you actually take him off to the side and say, Robert, we're going to run 30 slides right here, and we're going to do it easy. We're going to ease into it.
Yeah.
Now, here's how you do it. Imagine second base is over there, and you used to play baseball, Robert.
Yeah.
Let's try to slide into second base. You fold your left leg underneath. You kind of launch yourself off the ground. You touch down like a jet plane touching down on the runway, and you slide across the grass.
He needs that.
You do not stick your leg in the turf underneath you, because Stephen A., when he came up limping, I was afraid he had torn up his right knee on the slide. That's how dangerous that was. Then back to your case. It's 2nd and 20. He breaks free. He has 10 free and easy yards. He's got a shield block going on. He can get to the sidelines and step safely out of bounds with no contact. And what does he do? I'm assuming he's thinking, well, I only got 10 of these yards. I need 10 more for a first down. It's the preseason. It's the second preseason game.
You don't need them. You're
going to try to run through 2 defenders and take them on physically, and as he said, pinball or ping pong, what do you call it? I ping-ponged off them. You're kidding me. Your shoulders are at risk. Your knees are at risk. Everything's at risk. You are fair game to get hit full speed by 2 defenders in the second preseason game. What is wrong with you? Seriously.
Exactly. That's a very, very good point. But you know something, Skip? Now, you understand that the nation's capital love themselves some Redskins. The whole nation's capital, along with the Virginia area, whatever the case may be.
Right.
All right. But there's something going on in the nation's capital I don't think y'all have noticed.
Tell us, please.
It's a team by the name of the Washington Nationals.
They could teach.
They've won 7 straight. They've had 3 straight walk-offs. Adam LaRoche hit a solo shot to close out the game.
Said he got it all.
You know, FedEx Field is not that far. It's not that far from the baseball park.
So
why don't you go over there and take some notes? I mean, Bryce. Bryce Harper knows schools. Excuse me. Go there and listen. Let me tell you something. One day, Robert Griffin III. One day. Just it could be. It don't even have to be an off day. Okay. It can be during. You can start. You can work out in the morning. Okay. In the afternoon. Go over there because you know when they have evening game, when they have night game. Sure. You know, bad practice from like 3 o'clock. Yeah. You can roll over there. You can. And they will be more than happy to show you how to slide. Yeah.
That is true.
And they will show you. Yeah. They will show you. It's not going to take long. It's not going to take long enough. Roll over to the baseball park. This is a team that's in first place. They're 6 games ahead of the Atlanta Braves. They're the 3rd team in the majors to reach 70-win plateau. They are balling right now, despite some of their issues, okay? And they've got talent on that squad. Go over there with those brothers and let them show you how to slide. It's just that simple. It's not that complicated. They'll be more than happy to help. It'll ingratiate them even more with the Redskins fan base, and they'll slide over there come playoff time to come and support you since you supported their Redskins. All right, they'll flock from Virginia. They'll flock from the nation's capital. They'll flock from Prince George County. They'll flock from all over the Maryland area. Okay, go there and say, I need your help. Matt Williams will gladly sit there and get a couple of players. The manager, he'll get a couple of players. Harper are good buddies. There you go. There you go. That's all. This is not complicated. Okay. It's not sliding.
Well, it seems to be complicated.
It seems very complicated for him.
Sliding is important.
Yes.
And they need to show him how to slide.
All right. So, RG3, that's the advice from the gentleman. Just go right over there.
It's not a problem.
It's not a problem. And you explained it pretty well. You do what again? You just get down.
Touchdown like a jet.
And I can tell you right now, you can get there within a half hour.
Stephen A., what you got?
RG3 had somebody reach out to me via text just a couple of minutes ago. They'll say he is perfectly fine. He's all right, just a slight little thigh bruise. Just wanted me to know that.
So that right knee isn't a little sore today?
No, it's about a thigh bruise. Has nothing to do with the knee. He's absolutely fine. Just want to make sure I knew that.
Did he mention anything about the sliding?
No, he did not.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't ask. I mean, I stand by that. Ain't nothing wrong with going to the Nationals can ball. Yeah. Nationals are balling right now. Ain't nothing wrong with going with one of the top teams in Major League Baseball, learn how to slide. But if he says he's all right, let's give him respect. Like you pointed out, he says he's fine. Made sure he had somebody reach out to me to let me know he's fine.
I like it. I like your connections.
I worry. I watched him last night. I thought he did some good things in this game, too. He's trying to stay in the pocket, but his instincts make him run outside and wants to create. He reminds me a lot of Mike Vick.
Wow.
Question for you real quick.
Yes,
don't want to distract.
Like that.
No. Want you to tell our audience what you were telling us when you said you were alluding to what Michael Vick still does. You basically are of the belief that these guys don't change. If that's what they do, that's what they're going to always do.
And Michael Vick has done this his whole career. We say it now. He's a veteran guy. He's in the preseason game, running around, still trying to make plays. Robert Griffin is a competitive guy. He's like Johnny Manziel. Their DNA's built that way. They can't help it. We say stay in the pocket. You know that as a coach. But at the end, they're leaving the pocket, boys. They're going to leave the pocket.
But real quick, y'all, what are you supposed to do? Skip, help me out here. What are you supposed to do, Coach, if pressure is coming your way and nobody is open? I mean, and you have the ability to run. I can understand why Peyton Manning just goes down. I can understand why Tom Brady just goes down. Because they don't run. They can't run. But if you are RG3 and you can run, what are you supposed to do? Just sit there and get hit?
Well, no, you're going to leave the pocket. But when you leave the pocket, I tell guys that are athletic this. Know when the journey's over.
Meaning?
Know when the journey's over.
It's done.
It's just done. I don't need to get that extra yard. I want to play all 65 snaps.
All right.
I want to play all 16 games. That's how I help this team win. Me making another yard, it's the playoffs, I get it.
Okay.
But it's not I got to get through 16 games, and I got to stay healthy.
Okay. Listen, the 10 yards he got on 2nd and 20, that was a good game, right? Wouldn't you take 10 yards on every play?
I tell him take 7.
Take 7 and get out of bounds. It's easy.
All right, let's table this. We'll get back to it. Let's talk about the Browns quarterback battle, shall we? Oh, boy, it's right. Coach Mike Pettin wanted to make a decision today, in fact, but Hoyer hasn't separated himself from Manziel. Manziel and Hoyer pretty much even, both struggling. So, Coach, we ask you to put your hat back on and go to the sidelines. Hoyer, Manziel, who would you pick?
This is what I do. No, I'm not sitting in Coach Pettine's shoes, and I'm not saying that to get out of the question, but you're posing a question to me where I'm like you guys. I'm watching from afar.
Okay.
I don't see practice. I don't see the meetings. But let's just say if I'm there, and I'm getting all this information, and I'm watching these guys play. Here's the problem Mike Pettine has right now. He has a veteran guy in Hoyer that has played games, that has started in the National Football League, that has experience. And you got a rookie guy that's never been in a huddle his whole life. He's been kind of, playing street ball. We got a couple plays, I run around, I throw it over here, throw it to the left. He's trying to process this information in the playbook. All right, so you know he's going to struggle. But the problem is you're not distancing yourself from that guy.
Sure.
So I'm the head coach. I'm looking at this. I'm going, this is not good. See, it's not so much we keep saying can Johnny Manziel beat Hoyer out? The problem is, can Hoyer separate himself from Johnny Manziel? He's not doing that. So with that being said, the next question you got to ask yourself is, well, why am I starting Hoyer? And you can say, well, because they play Pittsburgh. Well, guess what? Johnny Manziel's going to play Pittsburgh the second half if you don't play him in the first half. They all count. The question you got to ask yourself is this. Is Johnny Manziel mentally tough enough, who I think he is, because he's a competitor, to go through the season he's about to go through if you allow him to start? Because he's going to throw the ball to the opponent 20 times.
That's a fact.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
And you just tell the offense, when he throws it to the guy, tackle him. And you tell the defense before the season starts, you walk in the defensive meeting room, say, we're starting this guy because right now on offense, Josh Gordon, not going to probably play. I got a tight end that's a good player, and I got a runner. I need another guy that can extend some plays. Johnny Manziel can do that. He can extend some plays. He's going to give you, oh, yeah, and then he's going to go, oh, no. You're going to live with that for 16 weeks if that's what you decide to do. So that's the dilemma. I'm not saying either way. I'm just telling you what he's thinking right now. In the third preseason game, we will not tell him a thing.
Okay.
He won't know a thing. You can sit there and say, well, Hoyer had a couple good plays. Hoyer, this shouldn't be close.
But it is.
That's the problem.
So he won't know anything on the third.
No, he's going to sit there and say, Hoyer,
same information he has now.
He's looking for a quarterback that won't lose games right now rather than win.
Okay.
That's the problem. That's the seat he sits in.
Confession time.
Yes.
From you?
Yes. Hoyer was so bad last night.
Okay.
I wouldn't blame anybody for saying Johnny Manziel should start week 1. Because my position has been Johnny Manziel's arrival as a starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns is imminent. Why does it need to be week 1? Put Hoyer in there, make sure all the pieces around you are set, and then after that you could bring Johnny football in there. Why throw him to the Wolves? Why not throw Hoyer to the Wolves when he's the future? And I still hold to that theory. But I don't blame anybody, specifically somebody like Skip, for feeling otherwise, considering how bad Hoyer was. Hoyer was last night. What I would say to you is that Ben Tate averaged 5 yards a carry last night. Yeah. This rookie, Terrence West, is not going to get the bulk of the carries. It's going to be Ben Tate in all likelihood. With Josh Gordon out, you got Jordan Cameron. Who else do you have? Who else are you going to throw the football to? If you don't have anybody else to throw the football to, why should Johnny be sacrificed when he's clearly the future? See, I look at things differently, Skip and Coach, differently than y'all in this respect. I understand Hoyer hasn't separated himself, but in my estimation, that's even more of a reason to throw him to the Wolves. You see, because in other words, what are you really losing? See, you could lose a lot if you don't have the parts around Johnny to help Johnny. But if you ain't losing anything by putting Hoyer up in there, because he ain't the answer anyway. He's proven that. So that's my thinking. But the other thing, again, I don't blame y'all for feeling otherwise. I'm just saying it's not like Josh Gordon's going to be there. Who's going to replace Josh Gordon? Who's your other wideout? Oh, by the way, Cameron, he's a target. Is Ben Tate enough to handle the rock for you out of the backfield? These are questions. You got your offensive line with Alex Mack and the crew. You two of your highest paid players on your offensive line. So you're getting decent protection. But you really don't have anything. You don't have a receiver to rely upon. You don't have a running back to definitively rely upon. All you have is Jordan Cameron. And outside of that, you don't have anything else.
That's pretty good, though.
But I'm not questioning him. Okay. I'm saying this is the NFL. And I need more than one target to rely upon if I'm going to have a rookie quarterback immediately inserted in there. So I understand where y'all are coming
Burleson
from.
Couldn't play last night.
And we believe in Nate when healthy. We believe in Nate when healthy. But I'm just saying, I need those pieces in there before I throw Johnny in there. That's just me.
What's happening right before our very eyes is that Brian Hoyer, who's a good young man, he's a fine kid. He's still a kid to me. He was an undrafted free agent in a national stage competition with Johnny Football, a former Heisman Trophy winner.
And folded.
Yeah, well, it's turned him into a basket case. Last night we were watching a basket case try to play football. So to me, if I am the coach, because I know that Johnny Manziel is a mentally and physically tough young man. He can take the heat and he can take the hits. That's what I believe. I name him today my starter going forward. And Saturday night, I'm going to give him the whole first half against the St. Louis Rams at Cleveland. At least the crowd's going to finally be, remember, they played 2 road games. So Johnny's going to get to feed off the crowd a little bit against a very good Rams front, right?
Yep.
It's going to be some rough going, just like it was this Monday night. And I'm going to let him take his lumps for the first half because he's going to grow fairly quickly. And because I think my defense is pretty good. I thought it looked pretty good last night. Mike Patton can coach defense.
They can be a top 10 defense.
They can be a top 10 defense.
I agree.
I'm going to have a better chance to win football games with Johnny Football at quarterback, 20 interceptions or not. I'm going to have to live with that. I'm with you. I'm good. Because he's going to make more plays than Brian Hoyer was ever capable of making. It's as simple as that. And he's going to give us a little better chance to win. Even though he's going to make some losing plays, he'll make more winning plays than Brian Hoyer. And Brian can sit right there and be a good soldier. And if worse comes to worse, and Johnny just fails for whatever reason after 4 or 5 games, you just say, this is a disaster. You can always go back if you have to, but he will not fail.
Well, if he continues to play like this, Brian Hoyer.
Oh, yeah.
Rex Grossman will be number 2.
Okay.
Because he knows the
That's
offense.
fine.
Rex Grossman.
Because
you know
he knows
in the
offense.
nation's capital, they call Rex Grossman Sexy Rexy. Did y'all know that? Yeah. He looked anything but, I mean, he looked fat when I saw him. Fat.
Well, he's the backup quarterback. He's the 4th quarterback.
Wait a minute. But you ain't got no business looking fat, okay?
Well, he didn't even suit up last night because he's trying to get in shape.
And he still looked like he was wearing pads and all of that stuff. He looked like he had on equipment. That's how rotund he looked. So all I'm saying to you is, look, man, it's a pretty bad situation in Cleveland from the offensive standpoint. And Johnny Football is probably going to be the starting quarterback sooner than later by default. But just like Hoyer hasn't really held up his end of the bargain, one would argue neither has Johnny. He hasn't really looked good.
But what about Detroit? What about Detroit?
I'll say this. If just, and I don't mean to butt in, but if Johnny Manziel is the quarterback, a couple things you'll realize. He's going to be in a lot of pistol formation. He's going to be wheeling and dealing. This offense is going to change. He's not getting under center a whole bunch. Maybe a third of the plays will be under center. Everything else, he's wheeling and dealing. He's out of the pistol. He's going to be on the move. He's going to throw the football. That's what he's going to do. They're going to run the football out of pistol. They're going to play to his strength. If you're going to start him, that's what you got to do. And you got to live with the fact, you know what? Hey, he's going to make some errors, and he's going to throw the ball to the guy. But at the end, a year from now, he's going to have – look, it takes – quarterbacks generally, it takes them 2,000 to 3,000 plays. Quarterbacks get 1,000 plays a year.
Okay.
So before they really feel really good about themselves, unless they're special, unless they're like Andrew Luck. I mean, he's a different guy.
Who, by the way, threw 7 interceptions in the 2 playoff games. I got it right now.
I'm just saying, you better stop talking about Andrew Luck.
Not.
You better stop talking about Andrew Luck.
We're giving this man a pass.
Andrew Luck's a bad boy. You really need to stop.
He's at a whole different level.
Thank you. Say it again.
He's at a whole different level.
A whole different level with 7 interceptions in 2 playoff games.
I'll say this.
God.
If Andrew Luck, listen to this.
You're a premature coronation.
Luck's a bad man.
Andrew Luck is not with the Colts in the last 2 years. They're a 6 and 10. No, they're a 6 and 10 team.
Well, wait. What if they just kept that Peyton guy?
No.
For 2, 3 more years.
They're a 6 and 10 team.
You should be ashamed.
I should not.
You should be ashamed of
proud of
yourself.
myself.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
I'm the one man who pointed out the obvious details.
Listen. 11-5, 2 consecutive playoff appearances, and oh, by the way, hold it, they passed up on Peyton Manning because of the next 15+ years. That's why they passed up on Peyton Manning.
Who was the MVP last year? Help me out.
So what?
Who should have been the MVP 2 years ago? Peyton Manning. Who will be MVP this year? Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning.
Last 3 times Peyton went to the playoffs, he was 0 for 3. And the last one was
screaming. You got to go to Sports Center.
It was 41.
You get let off the hook. He does not get let off the hook.
Whatever.
Coach.
We're good.
You got to go.
We got to go.
It's so disrespectful to Andrew Luck, man. He's a bad man.
Yeah, he's really bad.
He's a bad man.
In a recent article by ESPN insider Mike Sando, an anonymous current NFL backup quarterback had some interesting and strong comments about RG3. Griffin throws a great ball when everything is perfect around him, but he makes bad decisions. He's a terrible leader. Ego is the wrong word because you have to be supremely confident to play at a high level. But when everything is made about yourself and you go out of your way to make things about yourself, quarterbacks who know what is going on even a little bit are going, forget that guy. All right, so more criticism about RG3. We haven't heard it in a while, but he's not using ego. Again, anonymous. Stephen A., let me ask you this. Do you think, and I know you're checking out the article, do you think that's a fair criticism for him?
No. And I say that because I'm sensitive when I see piling on, particularly from contemporaries who don't have the courage to attach their name to quotes, who can say anything that they want to say, who very well may be jealous. When I look at RG3, there have certainly been times when it came across just as much about him and his brand as it came across about him in football. But I've gotten to the point where I think the brother deserves the benefit of the doubt from this respect. See, we want people to be PC. But at the same time, we're also demanding that they be honest. Because anything that they say or do that comes across as remotely disingenuous or inauthentic, we're going to be all over them. Is it possible that RG3 speaking the way that he has spoken, at least in the aftermath of last season, wasn't about ego, wasn't about anything other than somebody that finally stood up and decided to defend himself at certain points? Me personally, whether it's me or somebody else, I'd like to see him explain some things. I'd like to see him sit down and really take on the challenge of addressing these issues bluntly, straight up, and straightforward. But at the same time, I think that in his own way, he's made a concerted effort to do just that. Mike Shanahan was a coach that was in the midst of a 5-year, $35 million contract. He had pretty much complete reins of the franchise. Not total, because Daniel Snyder is the owner, but as much power as a coach could possibly have. And even though we have some folks here who has played for Shanahan and worked under Shanahan, the Shannon Sharps of the world who came to visit, who somewhat vouched for Shanahan, it is clear that Shanahan wasn't perfect. It is clear that he could have handled things a bit differently, a bit more adroitly than he did with RG3. And so as a result, you RG3, you taking all of these licks, you're taking it not just physically on a football field, but in a court of public opinion. Please don't get me wrong. I've heard of players who've spoken out against RG3, guys, and the things that they alluded to, questioning his sincerity. All of these things are factual. But that doesn't mean that it's all correct. Okay. Some of it might be, but some of it may be a product of RG3 feeling the need to stand up and defend himself and say, well, wait a damn minute. I'm not nearly as bad as I'm being painted out to be, and I'm going to speak up for myself. And because he did that is part of the reason why people get on him. And I don't think that part is fair. If we're going to clamor for the dude to be real and straight up about what's going on with him, let's not then take him doing that and try to attach it to ego. It might just be what's factually correct.
Okay. My view of this anonymous quote And another one, I don't think you read this one, Carrie. He does not take any blame.
Yeah.
That came from another backup
We've
quarterback.
heard that too.
He does not take any blame.
Yep.
If we are confining these quotes simply to last football season, only last football season, there's a lot of truth here, painful truth for me, because you know I love me some RG3. And I'm going to point out once again, as a rookie in the National Football League, Robert Griffin III outplayed Andrew Luck. And again, we're at odds here. I was on record before that draft. Robert will prove long-term to be better than Andrew Luck. Right now, I'm not looking very good, but I was looking great after that first year, right?
No.
20 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, turned around a team that had finished last and made it first in the NFC East, had the Seattle Seahawks down 14-0 at home in a playoff game before he got hurt. You tell me that wasn't a great rookie year?
It was a great rookie year.
Thank you very much.
I'm just saying that I still didn't feel like he was going to be better than Andrew Luck.
Okay, but he outplayed Andrew Luck as a rookie. Rookie to rookie, he outplayed him. Statistically outplayed him. Record-wise, playoff-wise, outplayed him.
Okay.
Well, he did. I mean, he was in a better position to play. Remember, Andrew went to the Ravens, and he just stunk it up, man. He had no chance against the Ravens.
Still was 11-5.
Okay, fine. Now, all these quotes are pinpointed to last year, and I can't argue with he made bad decisions last year. What happened?
Neither can I.
He came back way too fast. Did he play any preseason football last year? And am I being a hypocrite about it? Because I sat right here and I said, you can't do this. And I said going into the opening Monday night game, you can't do this. You can't start this game if you never played a snap of preseason football coming off ACL reconstruction. No. And what happened predictably on Monday night, that opening night? Stunk it up. Michael Vick, and Philly, they went in there and stuck it to him. Okay, so did he take any blame last year? Not enough. Big picture, did Robert Griffin III, you talked about how much Washington loves its Redskins. No city I've ever been in, and I've covered many, many games in D.C., no city hero worships its team any more than that area hero worships its Redskins. Robert got lost in the hero worship during the offseason, the brand, the documentary he did. We've talked about it. He lost himself in the hero worship. And I for his sake, I hated it because sometimes I think he's still a little lost in it. Because when he speaks, you want him to speak real. I'm not sure it's Robert speaking anymore. There's no humility anymore. There's not feet firmly planted on solid ground. I don't hear that anymore. So if you want to just pin this criticism to just this last season and what's going on right now, I'm okay. I think Jay Gruden's going to change all that. I'm looking for a big year from Robert, which is why I'm probably going to pick the Redskins to win the NFC.
I don't understand how people say they don't hear humility or whatever. You ask the man the question, he gives you an answer.
But he's still pretty full of himself.
But how? I'm like, listen, you ask him a question, does he believe in himself? He says yes. I hear him being complimentary of his teammates. I hear him being positive about the organization. I hear him talk about moving in a forward direction with the new coach. I hear all of those things. So I don't understand how we hear something that says, well, you know what, he's not exercising humility or whatever the case may be. And I'll also, now listen, the one moment that stood out for me, that's the most indictable moment against RG3 was when he played the Eagles, and on the last play he threw the ball like out of the end zone or whatever.
I know.
Yeah,
and nobody came to help him up.
Well, they were done with it.
The Eagles teammates. That was the one. Now, that moment told me a lot.
Sure.
But outside of that, no. And all I'm saying is you move forward because in all likelihood, his primary problem was Mike Shanahan, his relationship with Mike Shanahan. With that being said, I look at RG3 and I'm saying to myself, I understand that he had 3 Super Bowl championships and his accomplishments can't be questioned. But I remembered Tom Brady on the sidelines getting into a cussing out match with Bill O'Brien.
Yep.
I remember Tom Brady. I mean, we don't bring stuff like this up. And I remember the days of Phil Simms where Bill Parcells was screaming and get the bleep out of here and all of this other stuff. I'm like, It's football. It happens. But somehow, some way, you know, it happens with RG3, and we got to look at it and go like, well, you know what? He's a prima donna. All of these stuff's the problems.
Okay, but
we
those
don't
guys
say that
you
other
talk
guys
about had rings.
I'm just saying. But your accomplishments have, listen, you can talk about the accomplishments all you want to, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that you gloss over or negate who they are as people.
Yeah.
We're not. We all know that RG3 hasn't even won a playoff game yet. We all know he's fresh off a 3-13 season. But when you start talking about this man's character, I'm like, what factual evidence do you have, especially when you take into account Shanahan's role in all of that?
Well, you keep saying you don't like the fact that people may be, quote unquote, piling on, but could there be any hint of truth to it? Everyone
of course there
can't
could
say
be.
the same thing.
Of course there could be, but at the same time, how am I supposed to attach credence to people who are cowardly in terms of giving anonymous quotes, not telling who they are? I don't know what position you play. I don't know what personal relationship you got with RG3. I don't know if you've got an axe to grind against him. See, we can say what we want because everybody see us. We standing here front and center and we speaking our mind. And by the way, you don't have to comment. There are plenty of professional athletes, coaches, executives who are quick to say no comment. Why do you feel compelled to speak about this young man now? Or why are you doing it behind his back? I find that to be a tad bit odd. I don't see them saying it about a bunch of other guys.
Okay.
On
Were
balance?
they talking about him when he was a good leader, making good decisions as a rookie?
I don't remember
I don't recall.
That's a good question.
I don't recall that. That's my point.
Okay.
And I don't mean to sound like Ronald Reagan or anybody like that. I don't recall.
If he was
You
good,
have never sounded like
but
Ronald
if he was
Reagan.
good, nobody's paying attention in general. There's no need to critique him when he's
Have
good.
no
When he's
recollection.
playing well.
I commute from Schenectady to Manhattan. It's about a 6-hour round trip, but it's cool. My family loves Schenectady, and I love books on tape. It's a lot of time to spend driving alone. On the other hand, Schenectady is really close to the highway, so...
Life is a long drive. Make sure your car is along for the ride. Mobile Super Motor Oil is formulated to help prevent sludge and protect against wear. Mobile Super for long engine life.
On Sunday, Redskins wide receiver Pierre Garçon posted a photo on Instagram of his teammates at practice with their hands up, paying tribute to Michael Brown, the unarmed 18-year-old who was shot at least 6 times and killed by police earlier this month in Ferguson. Hands up, don't shoot, we are all Mike Brown is the caption. Every day, more and more athletes are speaking out about the murder of Mike Brown. At last night's game, Brandon Merriweather and the Redskins secondary came onto the field as one unit with their hands up for Brown. Veteran safety Ryan Clark said that Merriweather and D'Angelo Hall came up with the idea and that everyone was on board. And that's where we start the discussion. Everyone on board wanting to do something. Everyone can't necessarily relate to being a black man or a black teenager in that situation, but everyone can relate, in this case, to the unexplainable loss of life. And last night, these athletes did something about it. Stephen A., we all agreed on Friday that more should speak up, more should do something. And we're seeing that over the coming days. Your take on everything that's happened?
I applaud the brothers for the Washington Redskins for doing what they did. I think it was the right thing to do. You know, Merriweather and D'Angelo Hall, obviously, you know, were the ringleaders with this. And Ryan Clark, I'm sure, had something to do with it as well, considering how intelligent and conscientious that brother is, who we're proud to call a colleague as well. So I applaud them on that. But I want to go on the record and say that not aimed towards them, but in terms of professional athletes themselves, particularly of African-American descent, it's not enough. They need to do more. And what I mean by that is we understand that a young 18-year-old black man by the name of Michael Brown was gunned down. We now learned that he was shot 6 times. We have a justice system in place that is going to address that matter. We have heard the President of the United States of America speak on it and call for calm simultaneously, recognizing that peaceful protesters should not be harassed by police officers. But at the same time, citizens of the United States, citizens of Ferguson, Missouri, don't need to conduct themselves the way the few of them are conducting themselves. So we understand, and we heard the president speak loud and clear about that. I applaud my man, my brother, friend of the show, Rapinelli, for going out there. He's a St. Louis native. This is about 25 minutes outside of St. Louis. Yep. He's there imploring people to be calm.
Right.
And I totally applaud that. And I know that I got myself in the eye of the storm the other day because I talked about calling for calm and making sure we recognize that there are other things that are not supposed to be happening as well. Sorry, I'm going to do it again. I don't care about people being offended by this from my community. I'm going to say it again. You don't go to a gunfight with a pocket knife. You can't sit around and vandalize and loot and think that that's going to resolve anything. That's going to sit there and get yourself hurt. Shots were fired at police officers last night. 31 people were injured. I don't know how many people were arrested. I think it was like they said 31 people were arrested. I'm sorry.
2 were shot.
2 were shot. Several more people were hurt. You can't accomplish anything without law and order. Right. You have to know how to conduct yourself.
Yep.
And these police officers did not fire one gunshot, according to the police officers and according to the report, although it's perfectly within their right to do so based on what's coming their way. So while we acknowledge that an 18-year-old has been shot and somebody has to be held accountable for that, it is up to our justice system to do so, and it's up to these professional athletes, while bringing attention to it by holding up their hands, okay, bringing that attention to it. Also take a moment to extend yourself beyond that and bring up the fact that people out there who are vandalizing and looting and using this as an excuse to break laws are not doing anything other than contributing to the disintegration of your own community. You know this for a fact, Kerry. Rodney King's situation goes down. What happens? Certain parts of Los Angeles have never recovered. Have never recovered from it. Katrina, even though that was an entirely different situation, natural catastrophe. The Ninth Ward still hasn't recovered. What's this going to be next? You got to know how to act. That's all I want to say.
And you bring up Rodney King and obviously the LA riots. Do you remember how they let them burn their own neighborhoods down? And once they tried to move west, they were like, no, let's stop right now. Okay, so now you guys want to get into a new neighborhood, so they let them do that. Anyway, Eric Allen, you are weighing in on this. You obviously know what's been going on in Ferguson and obviously what happened last night.
Without a doubt. It's a heavy situation, and I applaud, and it's fantastic that the defensive backfield of the Redskins came out and showed that, you know what, this situation is bigger than sports, bigger than me, and kind of raised the white flag, basically, and said, hey, you know what, this is an opportunity for me as a NFL player to shine light on a situation that is just tragic. And when you start to look at responsibility of a father, as I am, and you have 4 sons, this could have been any one of them.
We're all Mike Brown.
It could have been any one of them.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a heavy situation. And the root of it is jobs, lack of education. When you come down to the neighborhood, that's basically what it's about. And you have to find a way, as far as this community is concerned, to reach out beyond your borders. You're talking about when we were in Los Angeles in '92, they shut the borders down when they tried to leave their neighborhood. This is about opening up the borders in Missouri, finding a way to connect racially between the black and white community. They said the neighborhood is 67% African American. The police force is maybe 2% African American. We need some more diversity in that situation to be able to look at this neighborhood not as those guys, but one of us. And I think that's what it comes down to, is finding a way to bring the community together, opposed to saying those guys over there or those guys over there, they don't like us. So this is a very heavy situation. I applaud the Redskins for stepping out of the National Football League bond and saying,
they do more? Well, athletes in general.
We all can do more. Just not athletes, entertainers, the everyday business people who have left that community are now in New York and Los Angeles. We can all do more. It's just not the athletes. It's great that they took that opportunity on Monday Night Football to raise awareness of what's going on.
Only quick thing I'm going to add before handing it to Skip is this. It would be a lot easier to bring attention to those things that ail the black community, particularly in that specific area, if we were able to pay more attention to the peaceful demonstrations that have been taking place. Unfortunately, the hooliganism of the few has taken center stage, and it's brought attention to that area even more so in a negative light, because now we're focused on the fact that the National Guard has been called in to bring order. And when you see videos of black folks running in the stores and busting cars and doing all of this stuff, that don't have anything to do with Michael Brown's death. And what it's doing is highlighting the fact that order is needed. And when people are highlighting or forced to highlight that order is needed, nobody's going to think about diversity. They're going to think about order, which means you're defeating the purpose by conducting yourself that way. Go ahead.
This is always enlightening to listen to you, listen to you. I'm going to once again preface, as I always do on these issues, what I often say on this show. In no way will I presume or pretend to feel what any of the three of you feel about this, as you term it, heavy issue. But I'm going to ask you some tough questions here that struck me as I watched this show of support. Anytime there's been real racial progress in this country of ours, this great country of ours, it's usually taken a joint effort by the black and the white community. Am I right about that?
That's fair. Yes. That's very fair.
Okay, now let's take it down to the microcosmic level. Let's take it to the Redskin locker room before this game. Let's say that D'Angelo Hall and Brandon Merriweather, who first had this idea, didn't just go to the DBs, all of whom I think are black. I'm pretty sure they're all black. What if they had thrown it open to the whole team and said, we want all of our brothers in this locker room to join in this show of support? That would include some white players, obviously. And I'm going to ask you questions that I don't have the right answers for, and I'm curious how you would respond to this. If those white players are comfortable in joining in, should they? Should they feel comfortable in joining in? Because it's really not a white issue per se. It's a heavy issue in that community, and I personally think it is a white issue, but a lot of people might be offended by the prospect of this being a white issue at all. Like the whites should have nothing to say about this. So should the white players feel comfortable joining in?
Yes, because it's a life issue. It's a life issue.
I'm with you, but I want to make sure about this. I want to make sure.
No.
And I'm not sure. I can't speak for even the white players in that locker room. Would they feel comfortable in joining in? I think they would. I don't know that.
I hope so.
Okay? I'm just saying that would be a real show of support. I think that would have some magnitude that would even go beyond just the defensive backfield.
I agree. And you've been around locker rooms where you know the locker room dynamics. It's that team chemistry. It's that understanding of what my brother is going through as far as on the field and off the field issues. So, again, I think that would have been a great opportunity for, again, it to blow up even more so than just the defensive back.
It just sends a bigger message.
It sure does. And that's what we're talking about.
It sends a much more powerful message.
And it's not them against us. It's us together.
Okay, us together.
Evilness and lawlessness transcends ethnicity. Has nothing to do with ethnicity.
I agree.
It has everything to do with the fact that it shouldn't be transpiring, period. It's just that simple. And I often say it on this very show. The civil rights movement would have never succeeded without white support. There were God-fearing, decent, white American people that said, this is just wrong. It wasn't just black folks shouting into the wind. You understand? And so when we recognize that and we understand its importance, then of course, when you consider the fact that sports is supposed to be a gorgeous mosaic, it's supposed to be an amalgamation of just everything that this country, this nation is supposed to represent. And it's the closest thing to a meritocracy that any of us have ever witnessed, because you don't get to hide behind the curtain. What you show you are capable of doing, by and large, you are rewarded for it. The fact that there's that equilibrium that exists, and it's under the prism of sports, to me, gives sports the license to step forward collectively, regardless of ethnicity, and to move forward for progress. So that's what I mean. I in no way don't want to come across as denigrating the Washington Redskins. They did the right thing, and they were conscious, and I applaud them for doing it. I'm just saying that I wished professional athletes themselves would take moments like this to do more. You should be out in the streets today, because let me tell you something. If they keep acting the way that they keep acting, Michael Brown's death is not the only one we're going to hear about in the coming days. You can't shoot at police. You can't engage in that level of lawlessness and think that you are going to get away with it. You are going to pay a price. And we need to, everybody needs to stand up and to tell those folks, the few, not the many, because most of them
let's be clear, there's a few agitators.
There's a few agitators, and some of them are not from Ferguson. Some of them are not from, but we have to collectively come together and say they need to be stopped.
Okay. Obviously, the tensions are still high in Ferguson. Mike Brown, Michael Brown's parents, were on the Today Show, and they said the only way in which they believe that the unrest could stop would be if, in fact, there was justice, and they're still seeking that today. We will continue this conversation in the coming days. Last night, the Browns averaged 38 yards per drive with Manziel in the game, compared to 10 yards per drive with Hoyer in the game, not including a one-play drive to end the first half. Nonetheless, not an impressive performance from either quarterback. Eric Allen's still with us. We are discussing politics, but now we're shifting gears. We're going to go straight to Manziel here and the Browns battle. Who should be the starting quarterback, in your opinion?
Brian Hoyer should be the starting quarterback.
Okay.
And, again, when you look, the measurables, when you watch the combine, you're like, oh, 5'11", whatever. He looks small. Manziel looks small on the football field, first of all. And he's a running quarterback. We all know running quarterbacks don't survive in the National Football League. You got to be able to be mobile. Like Aaron Rodgers is the gold standard of mobile quarterbacks as far as being able to throw accurately on the run. Johnny Manziel is a work in progress. You cannot expect him to start for this Cleveland Browns football team and be successful. And I see that. And in watching the last couple games, he struggles with accuracy. The balls are short. In the pocket, he's having some difficulty. They're running 2 game plans when he's in the football game. That's not what you want to do for a Cleveland Browns offense. You want to find a way to win with that great defense. They have an outstanding defense, and we've seen that on display. And definitely the running game. Johnny Manziel should wait and be in the wings, maybe after the bye if things are not going well with Hoyer. And you have to give Hoyer some credit. He won 2 real games, not college. He won 2 real football games. We're talking about.
Yeah, but Eric, they're saying that's when he should start, after the bye.
I'm not saying he should start. I'm saying if Hoyer struggles, you have to give Hoyer an opportunity to not look over his shoulder.
Okay.
He's not that guy. He's overcome so many obstacles, set behind Tom Brady. He has to play and know he's a starter.
Eric, I agree with you.
All right.
It's something I've been saying. But I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
You can stink so bad that you just got to go. I mean, look, man, Hoyer looked bad, bro.
He did.
2 completions in 5 series. I mean, that's epically bad. Now, I understand looking over your shoulders, but last time I checked, Johnny ain't going nowhere. He's the number 22 overall draft pick.
And he's not looking good either.
I know that. I know. And like I said, I agree with you. But here's my problem with what you're saying. And I shouldn't say a problem with what you said. A problem with what we both saying. I'm with you, bro. My problem is that, my Lord, I didn't expect Hoyer to look that bad. I mean, I didn't expect him to look impressive, but how bad he looks like he don't belong in the NFL. Hoyer literally owes the city of Cleveland. You should really look at Cleveland right now and be like, damn, do I really need to go out to a restaurant today?
He's a hometown.
But that's what makes it worse. That's what makes it worse. Because if I'm that bad, it's hard to show myself at home. I mean, home is where the heart is. I get that. But home is where the heart aches too. So I'm like, look. If you're that bad, I mean, I'm watching this dude. You can't throw passes straight. You seem to be rattled. Johnny's not going anywhere.
I understand that.
So if Johnny's going somewhere and I'm thinking about trading him, then I get your point and I get my point. My problem with him is that he's clearly flustered by Johnny Manziel's presence. And Johnny's presence, he ain't going anywhere. So if you're going to look this bad, I mean, look, man, if I was Hoyer, if I ordered food for delivery, is he married? Because I would have the wife order. Somebody with a different last name. A matter of fact, if I was a regular citizen in the city of Cleveland, hold on, Gary. If I was a regular citizen in the city of Cleveland and my last name was Hoyer with no relation to Hoyer, I would lie about that right now. That's how bad it is. Look, it's bad. I'm just saying it's just bad, man. It's bad right now. Right now, he can't do this again.
Skip with the smile.
This.
Skip, get in here, sir.
He just not this.
Come on, Skip.
Come on, Bayless.
I'm no Brian Hoyer fan, but he did only play 13 plays.
I'm just saying, man. It looked bad. Stop it.
I got to bring it back to Eric here. Are you suggesting that Johnny Manziel is going to be a bust in the National Football League? Because that's where you were heading with your opening remarks.
I say anything
he
about
looks little.
bust.
Running quarterbacks don't last.
And they don't.
Okay.
Has anything I said wasn't true?
But is that where we're heading?
I'm just saying. I'm just stating fact. He's small. He's a running quarterback. He ran the ball in 2 years. He ran the ball close to 400 times in college. He's a great playmaker. That doesn't work.
How many of those runs were called at Texas A&M of those 400?
Run?
Yeah, called runs.
Well,
I'll bet maybe.
You know what though?
Called runs, maybe 2% were called.
It doesn't.
Okay.
It really doesn't matter because that's what gets you hurt in the National Football League. I'm not saying he's going to be a bust. I think with understanding offensively, what you have to do as a quarterback is understand how to move in the pocket. Mobility is the issue, and mobility to be able to throw accurately on the run. Right now, he's not exhibiting those traits.
Okay.
And I'd rather go with a guy who's won 2 National Football League games than a bunch of games in the SEC.
Did you happen to catch Johnny's first NFL action the week before in Detroit?
Oh, yeah.
He looked a little like Johnny Football. I saw some lasers, and I saw a couple of runs where I said, wow, that was quick, that was fast, because he is quick and he is fast. Last night, I saw 0 Johnny Football, because you made the case that you don't want to let Johnny be running Johnny's offense. You want to run the Browns, the Kyle I don't know what Kyle Shanahan's offense is, because it was kind of RG3's offense in Washington, right? Last night, Johnny Football tried to be the perfectly coachable rookie pocket passer, and it will not work. If you're going to go with Johnny Football, you have to let him do some Johnny Football, because there's magic to be made. He is a rare specimen to me, and I can just show you against Alabama twice. They tried and tried, and again, it's still college, but it's the highest level of SEC, Nick Saban coached college football defense. He picked it to pieces twice in Tuscaloosa, and then after Nick had the whole offseason to get ready, back early last year in College Station. Will it translate? You better believe it will. And I remind you, Russell Wilson's a little shorter than Johnny and looks even smaller than Johnny does. And obviously, Russell had to figure out, how can I make this work?
Right.
Johnny's arm is at least as good as Russell's.
I agree.
Does he think like Russell? Can he play with the poise Russell? I don't know. He's going to have to show us some stuff. But again, I believe he will. What I would do right now, because that is a top 10 defense that Mike Patton is now coaching, and I think he will coach it at a very high level.
I agree.
Brian Hoyer has crumbled under the national stage competition with Johnny Manziel. And what you saw last night was a basket case of a player who's pretty good. He's always pretty good. He learned his craft under Tom Brady.
Much better than I saw him last night.
That's what I'm saying. But he was an undrafted free agent for a reason. Because he's not as good as Johnny Manziel. And for me personally, because I think Johnny is a really mentally, physically tough kid at age 21, I'm throwing him into the fire right now. I'm throwing him in against the St. Louis Rams on Saturday night for the first half.
What gives me concern with that, and again, I'm not against Johnny. I hope Johnny turns out to be a Fran Tarkenton type player but again, some of the hand gestures last night, some of the things that a quarterback, and as you know, great quarterbacks,
it's part of his package. It's
but that's not what a quarterback, a leader of men, does, and that's the difference between Texas A&M and the National Football League. You're not leading teenagers, you're leading men.
After an incomplete pass last night, Manziel gave the Redskins bench the middle finger, bird. Redskins linebacker Brian Orakpo called it hilarious, while Manziel acknowledges he should have been smarter, a little more mature perhaps. Eric Allen's still sitting in with us. You brought it up. Big deal? No big deal.
Well, big deal because it's a quarterback, and it's a young quarterback who the media follows all the time. 10 years ago, Skip, this would have been non-issue, but in today's instant world, it is a big deal. With the NFL trying to crack down on those type of things and the way the fans are viewing the game, it is a big deal now. As far as on the field, there's so many other things that go on the field that we're not aware of that are much worse. But for Johnny, this is a big deal. When you're in a quarterback competition, every move you make is being judged, not just on the football field, but off the football field even more. Because, again, I go back to, you're not leading a bunch of teenagers. You're leading men. And to have men follow you, you have to be able to exhibit some professional behavior on and off the football field. It's extremely important when you're quarterback of a National Football League team that you exhibit those behaviors that we're accustomed to seeing winners have. And so, yes, it's a big deal for Johnny Manziel. Maybe not a big deal for, a backup D lineman, or, the offensive tackle or something. Right. Hey, he's tough and, he doesn't give. But for Johnny Manziel in this situation that he's in and what the NFL is trying to do, understanding that the cameras are on him all the time. Right. And what's important is I think when you saw Johnny Manziel, he was approached by one of the coaches and let him know that they just saw that. You see his reaction. It wasn't cool. He was kind of like, oh, man, the look on his face was like, I can't believe I let that get away. I can't believe I went there with that situation. I should have known better. And yes, he should have known better. And those are some of the things that as a owner, as a head football coach, you look at and say, is this guy ready to take this to the next level?
Well, you're already on record saying Hoyer should be the starter. But if there was any decision making, and right now you're like, I'm on the fence, that's
one of the things. Because it comes down to handling pressure. I mean, the guys from the sideline, you get so many other things from the sideline. Is that what's going to take? Is that all it takes for you to kind of lose your composure? 2-minute drill, and you're going against the Seattle Seahawks. What's going to happen then? You know what I'm saying? So again, it just shows you that he's young. He's a young kid who is at a position where he's going to be handed the keys to this amazing opportunity, and he's not ready yet.
Uh-oh. I think you've done it now.
Not ready
Here we
yet.
go.
Was Dan Marino a successful quarterback?
Yes, without a doubt.
Tom Brady's a successful quarterback?
Oh, yeah.
Peyton Manning's a successful quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
Was Brett Favre a successful quarterback?
Yep.
Are their personalities the same? I would say no.
No.
I think that Brett Favre was the kind of person, Mr. 70,000-yard passer, Mr. Wrangler commercial, one Super Bowl champion in 20 years, 40 years of age, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, a 102 quarterback rating his year with the Minnesota Vikings. Right? Yeah. Okay. As Skip will point out about Johnny Manziel, the madder he gets, the more fiery he gets, the better he plays. How do we not take that into consideration? Why is it that we have devolved to a point in our society as it pertains to sports where we think you have to conduct yourself a certain way in order to be successful? Why can't we take the personality of the individual in question, look at who they are, how they're built, and ask ourselves, for that specific person, is it an ingredient for success? Mm-hmm. That's why I look at Johnny. If Johnny flipped the middle finger at the fans, that would be egregious to me, because you got to tune them out. How the hell are you supposed to tune out people that are smacking you silly? Whether it's upside your head, taking you off at the knees, bone crushing your body, slamming you to the turf or whatever the case. Those are the people you don't get to ignore. Mm-hmm. Those are the people you do have to pay attention to. Right. Now, just because somebody else elects to be quiet and then operate like a surgeon in terms of picking you apart, that might work for them.
Yeah.
The other dude might sit there and say, bump you.
And it works for, it works for them. The success of the team and it works when you cut them up like a surgeon.
But what I'm saying to you is that whatever it takes, whatever works for him, works for him. I'm watching the reports on SportsCenter and other networks and listening to talk radio, and I'm under the impression that, Johnny flipped the bird to somebody. You got to watch that. No, I found out it was towards the Redskins. Mm-hmm. That seems reasonable to me. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying, again, advocating the specific visual impact of flipping the bird to somebody. I'm simply saying, okay, you don't do that. But let's just say his reaction was verbal in terms of verbally, giving the middle finger or verbally giving somebody the bird. Would that have been better? Sure, it would have been. It might have been better.
He may have got a flag, too, though.
All I'm trying to say is that we are overreacting. Everybody need to pump their brakes, fall back, give this kid a break.
Yeah.
You're competing. And there's overreaction. I'm looking at some of y'all talking about this kid, and I'm like, damn, I thought
Eric Allen just retired a few years ago. I didn't know he was 80. I don't know that Herm Edwards was 100 years old. I didn't know that. I'm looking at y'all and I'm like, what has happened to you people?
I think you're getting confused with overreacting about the gesture, and what we're saying is Johnny Manziel has a lot of other things stacked up against him, like size, running quarterback in a competition with another quarterback. The accuracy is an issue. Now you put that on top of it. So again, it's just not the gesture.
No, that's not what I'm going. That's not where I was going.
It's all the other things.
I'm talking. Listen, when I flicked on the TV and the headline was Johnny flipped the bird, they weren't talking about his size, his willingness to run, not stand in the pocket. They were talking about it was a news story on the national airwaves because he flipped the bird. Are you kidding me?
There's check marks.
It's like, stop it.
I'm saying there's check marks. He needs to get all those check marks.
I'm going to call him Grandpa. I'm going to say that affectionately. I'm affectionately call him Grandpa Edwards, Herm Edwards. That's what I'm going to call him. That's what he sounded like. I don't get it. It's like, relax. Chill out.
Grandpa.
So what? Go ahead, Skip. So what?
Wait, I think we're out of time.
I think you got a minute.
I got a minute to talk.
Make it quick.
That's okay.
You got 1 minute.
Look, I did not love this. I do not condone it. And I will bet you, you will never see Johnny do this again.
But
it was a one-time shot. He is a notorious trash talker, but he's not an initiator. He's a responder. And I'm going to bring up the Rice game that opened last year. Suspended for the first half. He got into it with Rice. They're paying him, they're nobody.
Yeah.
And he's pointing up at the scoreboard after a touchdown pass because they're doing the Drake money sign to him. And he got a 15-yard penalty, and someone had to go to the end zone and walk him all the way back to the bench and yank him from the game because he said, Johnny, everybody's going to talk to you every game. You just can't do it. He got sick and tired of the Redskins doing the money sign and telling him he wasn't fast enough and this ain't college football. And he was in the middle of a pretty nice little drive. It was a little drive, but it was good enough to just over his shoulder. He didn't turn to him and double board him. He just wanted to flip over his shoulder to say, you know what? I don't care what you guys say because I'm about to score a touchdown on you.
This from an NFL culture historically associated with letting bad boys be somewhat bad because it brought out the best in them. But now suddenly we want to turn everybody into choir boys.
All right, folks. So Mike Pettin, head coach of the Browns, said he wanted to make a decision. In fact, today, as who would be the starting quarterback. Would it be Brian Hoyer? Would it be Johnny Manziel? After last night, looks as if he still has some decision-making to do. Not an easy choice. We asked this question quite simply. Should he take another week, perhaps, to evaluate who should be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns? Skip Bayless, you first.
I say no. I would name Johnny Manziel the starter right here, right now. I would give him the whole first half on Saturday night at home against the St. Louis Rams defense because Cleveland's defense is pretty good, a top 10 defense. This team will win more games with Johnny at quarterback, mistakes or no mistakes, than it would with Brian Hoyer.
Well, when you look at it, I don't think he should take much longer either. I think he should go with Hoyer, though. I think Hoyer has won 2 football games before. I think the pressure of competing with Johnny in the series and not being able to get comfortable. I think another bad decision is playing your wideout who's not going to be there. I mean, they have to find a way to get other guys involved in the game before. So I think they shouldn't go any further. Make Hoyer the starter right now. Allow him to play some football with the first unit and have Johnny play with the second unit.
I think Hoyer should be named the starter immediately. Give him the next 2 weeks to play football, and knowing he's the starter, okay, definitively and moving forward. If he stinks up the joint the last 2 weeks of the preseason, you change your mind and you start Johnny Manziel week 1.
2-1 for Hoyer, ladies and
even though he can't even order pizza in his hometown.
I'm telling you, give him the job.
Quickly, before we get out of here, today is Nate Burleson's birthday from the Cleveland Browns. We wish him happy birthday.
Happy health.
Happy